Hello, everyone, and welcome to Developing Palates. I am Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is Jiunn Liu. How you doing, Jiunn?
Good. Knocking out videos tonight.
That's right. So tonight we are talking about the Hammer and Sickle Museum Series, and this cigar is a Toro, 6 inches by 50 ring gauge, and this comes out of the Tabadom factory in the Dominican Republic. Wrapper is listed as Connecticut broadleaf. Binder and filler are both listed as Dominican Republic. No blender is disclosed for this cigar. Price point is $10, and this was released in July of 2016. So with all the details out of the way, let's get into our pre-light experience. So Jiunn, what was your pre-light experience like?
I thought that the band itself was pretty eye catchy. It's like a silver red thing going on, and um, I assume it's to pay tribute to Moscow City and just Russia in general. I assume,
Yeah.
but um, but the wrappers, the cigar itself it wasn't very good looking. Starting with the wrapper, you know, mine had uh, like torn wrapper pieces
Hmm.
and veins protruding out. It honestly made me think that it was a good binder leaf instead of like a quality shade grown uh, wrapper leaf.
Hmm.
So and it was like it was dull and all that stuff, uh, but the actual bunching and roll felt like it was pretty well done. I got a nice uniform give to it, and I didn't have any soft spots. And I like the fact that the head was finished off with a pretty thick triple cap on it. So, in terms of the feel of it and all that good stuff, it made me get the sense that I shouldn't have any issues with the construction in the smoking process. So, moving into pre-light, pre-light aromas of the wrapper, I got some barnyard hay and cedar. Smelling the foot, I got some dry white pepper, some roasted nuttiness, and some like a jammy dry stone fruit. Cold draw, I got some saltiness on my lips, as well as a white pepper spice on it as well, and some cedary wood as well.
Yeah, the wrapper was a medium dark brown, and it seemed to be slightly darker towards the head than the foot. There were some easily visible veins because they showed a lighter color than the rest of the wrapper. The seams were pretty easily visible, kind of due to the color variation of the veins, so you'd be able to track where those seams were at. Um, double cap seemed to be applied pretty nicely. The band it appears to be like the standard Moscow City band. There was no delineation between that. For the museum series portion of it. Just looks like the standard Moscow City band. It's red, so with a nice silver embossing on it. So it's a pretty good looking band, like you mentioned earlier. The aroma from the wrapper was a creamy hay. The foot aroma was fairly sweet and had a little bit of pepper as well. Pre-light draw brought like a quick hit of mild cinnamon, and then that kind of lent to like a smooth, sweet graham cracker. If that makes sense. So, getting into flavor, first third through final third, what was your experience like?
So the first third, I got it pretty fairly light and airy notes. So I got light notes of hay, oak, and some dry roasted nuts, a little bit of charred wood, and just kind of like wood bitterness and a very light body cream.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting. I got a very prominent note of like a bright citrus, which is very unique. It made me want to keep puffing on a cigar just to see what this citrus was.
Right.
um, and so through retrohaling, dry white pepper, cedar, and that same bright citrus, the finish really caked my entire palate with like a really rich and semi-oily white pepper, followed by some charred oak and bitterness. Body and strength. I pinned the body at a medium minus within the first third, and strength to be medium. Moving on to the second third, uh, it, one of the first things that I noticed was, right kind of when that second third hit for me, the strength really ramped up to a medium full. But it didn't, like give me like a headache or anything. It was just like it was kind of relaxing. Body amped up to welcoming medium as well. In terms of flavors, hay and bright citrus were the main players. Following those notes, I got some dry roasted nuts and airy bread. Halfway through the second third, a very nice slight sweetness came into the profile. And through the retrohale, I got dry white pepper, that bright citrus, and the airy bread. Finish consisted of kicking the palate with that rich and semi-oily white pepper, followed by charred wood and bitterness. Moving on to the last third, I felt like the last third, the complexities died down a bit, and it mainly left me with charred oak and bitterness. So those are the dominant notes. That was followed by light sweet cream and dry white pepper. And I was a little bummed within the last third because I didn't taste any more of that bright citrus.
Yeah.
And I kept puffing on it thinking, oh, come back. All it takes is some more. So,
Right.
The dry white pepper spice started kind of lodging towards the back of my palate and kind of like my throat. And it started kind of irritating it. So through the nose, dry white pepper, got that same airy bread. Finished lingering with the palate kicking rich and semi-oily white pepper, followed by charred wood and bitterness.
Yeah, for me, initial draws brought like a very nuanced walnut woodiness with a little bit of pepper there. And then an eighth of an inch in, that walnut woodiness kind of transformed into a slightly charred oak. But the slight pepper was still there. And the retrohale was like a creamy oak with a little bit of pepper there. It was a really long finish in the mouth with like a dull black pepper. So you kind of just knew it was there, and it was kind of just, it was a really long finish. So it was always in the front of my mind that it was there. An inch in, profile started to meld together with the slightly charred oak and the creaminess, and the pepper had faded out. The retrohale also lost the pepper, and it was like a creamy oak at that point. And then an inch and a half in, some mustiness came in to join the slightly charred oak and the cream. And then as the third came to an end, the mustiness really ramped up with the cream in the background, and the charred oak wasn't really noticeable anymore. The retrohale was still creamy oak at that point, and the strength was just a little bit above medium. And then getting into the second third, the mustiness settled down a bit, but there was a little bit of mintiness that had joined in with the cream. And then half an inch in, a slight oak came back to the profile of mustiness, cream, and mintiness. And then a little bit of the mintiness also made its way into the retrohale with the oak and the cream. And then at an inch in, the mintiness became a little sharper while the other flavors stayed at the same level that they were at before. And then after a few draws, that mintiness really settled down and kind of became a background flavor with musty oak coming back up to the front. The cream was also in the background there as well. And then an inch and a half in, the musty oak remained with the mintiness increasing a little bit. The cream had went away as well at that point. And then as the third was kind of finishing, that musty oak and that mintiness were really blending well together. And the retro was kind of staying at that creamy oak level. And the strength had dropped down to just right at medium. And then getting into the final third, the mintiness ramped up again and kind of left that musty oak in the background. There was also a little bit of bitterness that had joined in as well. A quarter inch in, mintiness settled back down. Oak gained a little bit of char back to it to go along with the mustiness. And then half an inch in, the char went away, mintiness went away. It just really a musty oak that was remaining. And then an inch in, it just remained that musty oak with a little bit of mintiness that came back to the profile. The retrohale was still kind of creamy oak. Inch and a quarter in, the cigar began to heat up, and that musty oak became really sharp. And then an inch and a half, that heat settled down some a little bit. But that musty oak was still sharp, and that's kind of how that cigar finished out. And the strength had increased up to medium full at that point. So kind of a little bit above medium, then back up to medium full. So an interesting change in strength levels there. So getting into performance, burn and draw, what was your experience like?
For burn, I got 2 hours and 56 minutes of smoking time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. Aside from that, there's not many positive things I could say. I had to do a full relight at the halfway mark of the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the hell happened. It just went out on me. So
Yeah.
I had to do a whole relight and purge, and then I continuously went out with the cigar. But after I did that, I didn't feel like the cigar changed in profile, which is good. And then within the actual ash, there were some parts of the cigar that just at random points just didn't want to burn. So I got some unburnt wrapper
Hmm.
that I was smoking through, and perhaps that has changed. That changed my um, profile to be something that's fairly different than what you tasted, I think.
Right.
Um, and then the ash was really flaky since the first ash. I mean, I had a whole bunch of little flakes that fell on the lab and whatnot. So subpar burn. The draw, on the other hand, even though it was a little bit loose for me, it was still pretty good. Um, the cigar burned cool throughout the entire smoking time, and then it offered me everything uh, that I tasted, and no issues on that.
Yeah, the burn for me was perfect through the first two thirds, but the final third went out on me a couple times, and I had to relight it. Ash held on in 2 inch increments, so kind of pretty much right at the third marks. That's when the ash would drop off. So really good, just kind of two ashes, and that was it. It was smoking pretty well. The draw for me was pretty much perfect, exactly how I like it. Just a slight amount of resistance to know that you're pulling on the cigar. So I was able to get all the flavors that the cigar was presenting. So I couldn't ask for really anything better than on the draw there. So overall experience, what was it like for you?
Um, so confusion is one word I would use. Uh, and you and I talked about this offline, but for the live session of this, talking about this. So a couple of thoughts. So when I read that this is a Connecticut broadleaf, I associate Connecticut broadleaf through smoking different Connecticut broadleaf cigars out there that I typically get, and I would assume that I would get medium to medium full body notes of oily, rich flavors, sweetness, not mixed with San Andreas sweet, but still very sweet, creamy kind of a profile, and a very damp earth, perhaps like a dank sort of a thing, like the Micarita and whatnot. Um, but smoking cigars and the way we review cigars, it's as if it's pretty similar to how we would smoke it blind, right? So getting into it without knowing what the literature and the breakdown of the cigar is. So my score is based upon that. And when I am to look at it in that fashion, I felt like it was an average cigar. I thought that the notes are a little too light and airy for me,
Hmm.
especially in the first third, and then that kind of morphed into a very charred wood, dry spice, and in a decent amount of bitterness within the second and last third. I'm not saying that it was a bad cigar. I'm saying that it's kind of the middle of the road, decent cigar.
Hmm.
Perhaps my burn experience has something to do with it, especially the fact that parts of the wrapper didn't burn. Um, and perhaps I'm also assuming that, within this Connecticut broadleaf wrapper that they use, is not as perhaps domineering as the broadleaf wrapper used in other cigars that I tasted that I was talking about,
Hmm.
that I typically get out of. So those are my assumptions. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not a
Right.
master blender or anything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had great flavors in transitions through the first two thirds. Final third had a drop off due to the relights and the cigar getting a bit hot. But really great construction outside of those, the cigar going out in the final third. Um, Hoping that maybe a little bit more time might kind of level things off for that final third burn and you won't have to, have any issues with it going out on you. Um, but there's some really great nuances in this cigar, and I think retrohaling is a must. If you're not retrohaling this cigar, you're going to be missing out on a lot of the flavors. So, you wouldn't get the same experience if you don't do that. I think that people should seek this out, give it a try. $10 price point, it's not going to break the bank for anybody, so it's definitely something that's within people's wallets to grab one to try it out. But I think definitely a more experienced smoker will appreciate this more, kind of just due to the strength level and the nuances that it provides. But it's definitely something I would go back to multiple times. I enjoy the hammer and sickle lines. I think this is just another good addition to what their previous offerings were. So getting into scores, you gave this a 5.40 and I gave it a 7.40. How do you think your score matched up with your experience?
Given the fact that I thought it was average cigar, that's where it hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it makes sense. I'm good with the score. It, I just can't get through. A big part of me just thinks, well, okay. I would like to know who blended this cigar and what they're going for,
Right.
because it leaves me very confused on what kind of a broadleaf wrapper this is.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
if you're watching it, email me or call me. I'd like to know.
Yeah, I think my score matches up. I think it was a really good cigar, and I think my score reflects that. Like I said, I'm a fan of Hammer and Sickle, and this kind of fits into the profile that I've gotten from other cigars that they offer. So, really good cigar for me. It comes out of the Davidoff factory, that's as some of the other lines do as well. So, kind of take that for what you think. I kind of think it matches up with a little bit of a Davidoff profile with some of that mustiness I was getting. So, I think it's definitely a higher tier cigar. So, I would say recommend it. I know Jiunn and I, my scores are definitely off, but that's the reason we do it this way, is so that you get 2 points of view. And if we're the same all the time, it's going to be a pretty boring. You're not, getting two people talking about the same thing doesn't make much sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's good. I'd recommend people give it a shot. If you're just catching this video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us so that you get notified when we release new ones. But also check out the website, developingpalates.com, to see the full written review. And be sure to follow us on all the social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+. And thank you for watching, and we will catch you on the next video.